No surprise, Lou Lamoriello will stay on as general manager of the New York Islanders. We'll talk about that and everything else we learned from Getaway Day on Friday, coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Monday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts, so you can get new episodes as soon as they drop. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. Game off. We got to talk more about Monopoly Go. This fast-paced game lets you team up with friends for tournaments and unlock awesome prizes like unique stickers for trading, cool playing pieces, and hilarious emojis for taunting your friends. So download Monopoly Go, now free on Google Play or in the App Store. Game on. All right, we have got a lot to discuss on today's show. And look, Getaway Day was Friday, and the New York Islanders, got some very big news about not just the Islanders, but a few other things as well. So we're going to talk about all of that. But first, if there's something Islanders related on your mind, if you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, you can email us at lockedonislanders@gmail.com. And if you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever's on your mind. You can also follow the show on X at Locked On Isles, and you can follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYR, VSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders all offseason long, from trade rumors, free agency, the draft, hirings, firings, and, we'll be there every step of the way, so make sure you follow us and join us. It's great to talk Islanders hockey with you, game time or anytime. All right, Friday, no surprise. Does anyone really feel shocked? Lou Lamoriello announcing to the media Friday, first thing out of his mouth, that both he and Patrick Roy will be back for the 2024-2025 season. And what does that exactly mean? Well, it means to me that the idea of a rebuild that so many fans have been calling for, and everydayers, if you've been listening to or watching the show, why I feel the Islanders at least need a retool. Rather than necessarily a complete rebuild, but changes have to be made. And, with Lou Lamoriello there, we know he doesn't believe in a rebuild. He is in win now mode. And, some of the things he said just serve to reinforce that. Basically, Lou being Lou, he's a little bit, playing with the media a little bit. That's always something he's going to do. And, basically, he said that, hey, you have nothing to write about now because both the people up here at the, at the podium, and that would be Lou and Patrick Roy, are coming back for next season. And yeah, okay, that's just Lou's way of presenting, that fact. And I'm sure a lot of fans and a lot of people following this organization are disappointed. And yet, at the same time, I can't say I'm surprised. And Lou Lamoriello wants to keep working. He certainly, you can't say he doesn't know what he's doing, okay? I can disagree with his approach. I can disagree with his philosophy. That philosophy is, win now and, don't rebuild. Don't build up the young players in the organization. Concentrate on winning now and don't break up the core. And, to me, the idea of chasing 8th place or 7th place in the conference just to have a, once you're in the playoffs, you have a shot philosophy. Yeah, that's true, but it isn't the best way to build a truly contending team. The best way to do that is to stink for 2 or 3 years, make trades to add younger players and draft picks and start to develop them. And then when they start to mature and you figure out who's a keeper and who's not, then you're adding more good draft picks because you're losing, and then you get the opportunity to make a couple of trades and bring in some veterans and just get that last couple of pieces of the puzzle together and go on a run that isn't just, okay, we're the second wild card or third place, but we're going up against one of the best teams in the league in the first round. And, we'd have to pull 4 upsets in the playoffs to win the Stanley Cup. It's unlikely to happen. And, with the age of this team and where they're at with the cap, the more likely scenario is that there are diminishing returns going forward. But if there was one thing that Lou Lamoriello said that gave a little bit of hope to me, and I think a little bit of hope to Islander fans, and maybe I'm, desperately looking for hope, but here's what Lou said. I get this all the time. What changes can and should take place? We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it together. We spend a lot of time together. We'll come up with whatever is best, but we're excited. Now, by saying we, Lou Lamoriello means he and Patrick Waugh. And here's the important thing about it. Patrick Waugh needs certain things to make his team play his system to the best of their ability. The way this roster is constructed really was still based on Barry Trotz and then Lane Lambert, who, had a similar system. He tried to be a little bit more offensive minded, but realistically, this was still the Barry Trotz / Lane Lambert roster. And for Patrick Waugh to run his system, he needs people who move the puck fast, who skate fast, who are aggressive on the puck, and who, understand how to implement his system positionally and do things quickly. You're not getting that up and down this roster. There are players who struggle with that. And I guess the question becomes at this point, how much influence will Patrick Waugh have on what Lou Lamoriello is trying to do? Can Waugh say to Lou Lamoriello, I need a guy like this and a guy like this who can make quick decisions, who can skate quickly with the puck, who can help improve the transition game, who will play the way I want them to play? Now, the good news about Patrick Waugh's background is this. He just, a couple of years ago, was the coach and general manager of a championship-winning team in juniors in the Quebec League. That means he is very familiar with a lot of young and up-and-coming players, whether that helps the Islanders in the draft, whether that helps them make trades for younger players. There are guys in juniors who are now maybe in the minors or just developing still who know Patrick Waugh's system because they played for it or against it, and they know what it takes to make that system work. And the good news about young rookie players like that, they are not expensive to acquire. So the question then becomes, does Patrick Waugh have enough influence and input in working with Lou Lamoriello to get Lou Lamoriello to maybe trade away or buy out or figure out how to move on from some of the guys who don't fit Patrick Waugh's system and add some players who are probably less expensive because they're younger, who do fit Patrick Waugh's system? And this could be a backdoor way of this team getting younger, faster, and more skilled. It won't necessarily be easy because Lou Lamoriello has put this team in a very bad salary cap pickle. And between the contracts, the lack of cap space, the no trade clauses, and the modified no trade clauses, it won't be easy. But maybe, just maybe, as a glimmer of hope, Patrick Waugh can have enough input and enough influence on Lou Lamoriello that if this is truly a collaborative process, he could say, you know what, this player on our roster, not such a good fit for me. Let's see if we can move on from him and get a couple of guys who maybe are 23, 24, 21, but who know my system and can fit into my system, and we can add them on the team. And if you're giving away a guy who's making $4, $5, $6 million a year, you could add a couple of guys or three guys who are making $1 million a year and still have enough money left over to sign your restricted free agents and the guys you want to bring back, whether that's Kyle McLean or Ruslan Ishkakov or Mike Riley, whoever it is you want to bring back, you can still bring back. So this is the thing that gives me a little bit of hope. Am I disappointed that Lou Lamoriello is coming back? Yeah, I am. I'm not going to lie. I respect Lou Lamoriello. I respect everything he's accomplished in this league, and I respect the things he's done for this organization. But I still think at this point, the Islanders are better off moving on from him. But now that he's staying, I am hoping that the influence of Patrick Waugh and the two of them working in tandem to get good fits for Waugh's philosophy and style of play offers a possible glimmer of hope. We'll see. We've heard Lou Lamoriello say now for 2 years, we need a puck-moving defenseman and another goal scorer. We haven't seen him add either of those things since the Bo Horvat trade. So he's talked about it last offseason. He talked about it at the trade deadline this year. He talked about it in training camp when the team first started. It's time to start doing something about it. But at least with Waugh here, maybe, just maybe, there's a little more impetus pushing that to happen. And we can get a slightly different type of player for this team that could benefit the team going forward. We have got a lot more to get to on today's show. We'll talk about some of the things we learned over the course of Getaway Day from some of the players. We've got that. Plus, for our Islanders' birthday of the day, one of the last great snipers to play for the New York Islanders, a guy who had 3 consecutive 40-goal seasons for the Islanders in the late 90s. I think that's an easy one, but let's see if you can guess who that is. We've got all that and a lot more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. And with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride or your every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So, Getaway Day. Wow. Friday, the Islanders basically cleaning out their lockers and making their last statements to the press. And we'll see, how this all plays out this offseason. But we learned a bunch of things from Getaway Day. First of all, Matt Martin and Cal Clutterbuck. And, every day, as you know, Friday we talked about they may be done uh, as Islanders. They're both unrestricted free agents this offseason. And there were rumors going around that Matt Martin wanted to retire and that Cal Clutterbuck, we weren't sure. Well, both of them basically said they want to be back. Matt Martin, his quote, "The retirement narrative wasn't one I started. I certainly plan on playing hockey again." And he did say he would love to be back on the island. And Lou Lamoriello basically said, "We love loyalty, but it can't impede progress." Now, I know I hear a lot of my listeners snickering at, because maybe that already happened. But at the same time, that is what Lou Lamoriello did indeed say. And Cal Clutterbuck, again, he said he would prefer to be an Islander. He said, I just feel like this place is my second home. So even if I were to call it quits, I live here. It's my home. So I'll be popping in here once in a while, just to give Barzy or to you, Barzies or to use the gym or whatever. I'll be around. So you get the feeling both Martin and Clutterbuck want to be back next year as New York Islanders. The question, however, that we don't know is whether or not they will be back. And, Lou said what he said about loyalty, but at the same time, we know he loves veterans, that he prefers to play his veterans rather than the younger players. And yet, at the same time, does it make sense to bring back either Clutter or Matt Martin, as great Islanders as they have been over the years, for 2024, 2025? That is a storyline we will need to keep an eye on before all is said and done. We also learned a little bit more about Scott Mayfield. And I'll tell you, this was a tough one to swallow. Apparently, Mayfield fractured his ankle and it never healed properly. So he suffered the injury in the first game of the regular season, missed 8 games, as you may recall, and then tried to play through it. And he really took one for the team, especially when Adam Pelech and Ryan Pollock were both out of the lineup at various times. And clearly, Mayfield was not able to play the way he normally plays. And, in February, he had surgery to repair the ankle. And he basically told reporters on Friday that he just got back to walking after the surgery and the rehab and the injuries. So, look, here's what he had to say. "I need to play a very specific way, and it's tough to do that when something is wrong." So, first of all, thank you, Scott Mayfield, for the effort. I know he struggled. I know it wasn't easy for him to be effective this year, but boy, to play on an ankle, a fractured ankle that did not heal properly, is really sacrificing your body for the good of the team. And I have to appreciate that effort. Yeah, it was painful to watch at times because he wasn't able to be as effective as he wanted to be. And yet, at the same time, I give him credit for the heart and soul and effort that he put in. And hopefully he's back and healthy for training camp when that gets underway in September. Meanwhile, Ilya Sorokin also speaking to the media. And he said, "Tough season for me. No question." But he also said this: "It's still a good time for me because when you don't win, you learn. I have confidence and motivation to be better." And boy, is that important about, what we need to hear from Ilya Sorokin. And they asked him what went wrong. And he said, "Small details. it was just a hard part of the season. January, February, a lot of games, so many shots. There's some things to work on in the summer. It's physical condition and mental health. I want to start skating Monday, which obviously is now today. But here's why I liked this quote from Ilya Sorokin, because it shows he's aware of the problem, he's eager to work on the solution, and hopefully, we get more of the goalie we saw in 2020, 2023, 2022, 2023, a year ago, where he was second in the league in the Vezina Trophy voting. His numbers went down significantly from last year to this year, but it is so encouraging to hear that, he's on it. I think we all saw the toll that playing, starting, what was it, 13 or 14 games in a row when Semyon Varlamov was injured. They didn't have faith in Ken Appleby as a guy who they thought could even start one game. I think Sorokin understands what went wrong, is willing to accept the challenge, and now has to get back into doing what he does best. And hopefully we get the good elite goaltender that Ilya Sorokin had been prior to this year. So a little less mentally and physically tired, playing his angles better, taking care of those small details that he mentioned. All of that is going to be important for Ilya Sorokin going forward. And hopefully, he gets to rest mentally and physically, work on the things he needs to work on, and get himself to be ready for the start of another season. And look, let's face it, in an ideal season, Ilya Sorokin is going to start 50, 52, something in that range games. And then there's like 30 to 35, let's say, 50 to 55 for Sorokin, 30 to 35 for Varley. And I know that adds up to more than 82, but, somewhere in that mix is where you want to have the goalies. If you don't have that, then something's wrong with Sorokin. So hopefully he is ready for next year and back and ready to be the Ilya Sorokin we know and love. We have got more to get to. We'll talk a little bit more about some of the potential free agents and some of the things that we need to see during this critical offseason. We've got all that, plus our Islanders birthday of the day coming up on this episode of the Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. All right, game off. We've got to pause here to talk more about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying. Flag on the play. You already talked about that, but there's just so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you could team up with friends for time tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock, and there's so much to get. Unique stickers you could trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes. Cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, and hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot pachinko machine. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go, so get off the bench and go download it for free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV channels app. So, we know the Islanders have a bunch of unrestricted free agents and some restricted free agents, and obviously we've got to be aware of it. So a couple of the guys weighed in, and Mike Riley basically said he'd like to be back. And, Riley is a left shot defenseman. So that certainly is important. The fact that he plays that side, because look, to me, the only real candidate who could take over on that third pair is Samuel Bolduc. And as far as players who are NHL ready, I would like to see Bolduc get a shot. Sebastian Aho is also a left shot guy, but will he be back? I don't think so. But I think Riley, if you pay him at or near the minimum and you give him a 1 or 2 year deal, I think he would be an ideal 6 or 7, depending on whether Bolduc is ready. And again, with Bolduc, you've got that same old story that, the Islanders tend not to give their young players enough opportunity to learn and make mistakes while they are, on the ice in the NHL. And what we saw with Bolduc was a guy who barely played this year and needs to play in the NHL in order to get his game to the next level. I would like to see Riley back. Riley said he would like to be back. But then the question becomes, what about Oliver Wahlstrom? Wahlstrom, all he would say, and he only played 32 games, including just 10 after the coaching change, all he said was, we'll see, when he was asked about whether or not he'd be back. I don't see Oliver Wahlstrom having a role on this team going forward. I don't think that he fits Patrick Roy's system particularly well, because he wants players to play fast, and I don't think Wahlstrom really does that. But we'll see whether or not he returns, and if he does, it would probably be on a 1-year prove-it deal for roughly the same amount of money he made a year ago. For the rest of the offseason, again, we need to find more players to fit Patrick Roy's system. We need to find players who will make this team younger, faster, and more skilled every day. As you know, I've been saying that for more than a year now. And the question is, and I think this is the ultimate question for this offseason, will the New York Islanders and Lou Lamoriello actually do it? He's talked about it. He's talked about what the team needs and hasn't been able to or willing to pull the trigger. Now the question is, you got the new coach. He's about to enter his first full season. Do you put up or shut up? And I could tell you right now, if the team doesn't get the players that Patrick Roy needs to implement his system and play hockey the way he wants to play, boy, oh boy, you wasted your time hiring a guy who you don't feel, who isn't going to get the tools needed to get the players on the ice to play his system. If you don't go out and get the guys that Patrick Roy needs, why hire him? So I'm hoping against hope that we see at least some changes. Do I expect the big goal scorer to sign a contract? No, not necessarily. But get me some improvements on this team, and we will be talking all off season about how the Islanders might be able to improve. Time now for our Islanders birthday of the day. Sunday was the 52nd birthday of former Islanders winger Ziggy Palffy. Palffy, a second-round pick of the Isles back in 1991, a native of Slovakia, came to the NHL for the 93-94 season and had 3 consecutive 40-goal seasons for the Islanders, including a career-high 48 goals and 90 points in 1996-97. And it was even more amazing because those were not good Islander teams, and Palffy was really the only guy on that team who could really produce offensively. Other teams were gearing up to stop Palffy, and he still put the puck in the net. After the 98-99 season, where he fell to 22 goals and 50 points in 50 games, he was dealt to the LA Kings because the Islanders back then weren't going to pay their top flight players. He later played for the Kings and briefly the Penguins before heading back to Slovakia He played in 684 career NHL games, 329 goals, 713 points, and 322 penalty minutes. He played in 24 playoff games, all of them with LA, 9 goals, 19 points in those. One of his better games as an Islander, and there were many, but how about this one? October 16th, 1997, Islanders visiting the Shark Tank in San Jose. Tommy Salo, the goalie for the Islanders, Mike Vernon, the goalie for the Sharks. And in this game, Ziggy Palffy gets the scoring started a little less than 6 minutes in. His second of the year from Brian Smolinski and Robert Reichel, 1-0 Islanders. Then in the second period, after the Sharks tied it up at 1-1, Palffy scores again, this time on the power play. Brian Berard and Robert Reichel with the assists. And then in the third period, to close out the scoring with 5 minutes left, Palffy from Kenny Janssen. That's a hat trick for Ziggy Palffy. He also assisted on a power play goal by Brian Smolinski. Islanders beat the Sharks 5-2. Salo with 32 saves. But for our Islanders' birthday of the day, Ziggy Palffy, 3 goals, 1 assist. He was a +3. He had 4 shots on goal and was on the ice for 22 minutes and 24 seconds. So happy belated birthday to Ziggy Palffy. He is our Islanders' birthday of the day. I want to thank everyone for making Locked On Islanders your first listen every day, everydayers. Tomorrow on the show, we'll have some more takeaways from the getaway day and some of the things that players said, stuff that made me happy and some stuff that was a little more than a little frustrating to hear. We'll have that. We'll start our off-season evaluations and a lot more. So have a great day, everybody. Stay safe. And of course, let's go Islanders.